Someone wins $40 million on a Tuesday afternoon. By Friday, the calls have already started. Cousins they haven't spoken to in 6 years. A childhood friend with a business opportunity. A financial advisor who somehow got their number. And within the first 72 hours, the money starts moving. Not into investments, not into savings, into motion, into other people's hands. I went through documented case studies, court records, and reported outcomes from hundreds of lottery winners across the US and UK. The pattern that showed up wasn't bad luck. It wasn't taxes, though taxes do take a serious cut. It was something quieter, something almost invisible while it's happening. About 78% of major lottery winners end up in worse financial shape within 3 to 5 years. Not slightly worse, meaningfully worse. Some file for bankruptcy, some lose their homes, some end up carrying debt they didn't have before winning. And the part that's genuinely strange, a lot of them made moves that looked completely reasonable at the time. That's what makes this worth understanding. Because the failure here isn't stupidity. It's a specific kind of financial pressure that most people have never been trained to handle. Sudden wealth operates by completely different rules than money you earn gradually over time. When income comes in slowly, you adapt. You build instincts around it. You learn what a bad month feels like. You develop a rough sense of limits. Lottery money arrives with none of that context. There's no reference point, no muscle memory. Just a number in an account that feels permanent, but behaves more like a fast-melting block of ice. One thing that shows up almost universally in these cases, the winner almost never sees themselves as the problem. And in a way, they're right. The system around sudden wealth is genuinely predatory, but the response to that system is where things go wrong. The first financial move most winners make is not a terrible one on the surface. They pay off debt, they buy a house, maybe a car, maybe two. Completely rational. Completely understandable. But those first moves quietly set the new lifestyle floor. And the lifestyle floor almost never comes back down. That house needs property tax, insurance, maintenance. The car needs registration, fuel, insurance again. Every reasonable purchase arrives with a monthly cost attached. And those monthly costs stack quietly in the background, while the lump sum in the account keeps shrinking. This is what financial researchers sometimes call lifestyle creep. But that phrase makes it sound gradual and gentle. For lottery winners, it's not gradual. It happens in months, not years. And because the number in the account still looks large, the alarm doesn't trigger the way it normally would. If you had $50,000 in savings, and you spent $8,000 in 1 month, you'd probably notice, you'd probably adjust. But if you have $4 million and spend $80,000, the percentage is identical, the math is the same. The feeling is completely different. That psychological distance from the real burn rate is one of the more dangerous things sudden wealth creates. There's also a social dimension that rarely gets discussed honestly. When someone in a group suddenly has serious money, the dynamic shifts whether anyone admits it or not. Picking up the tab becomes expected. Helping family becomes a baseline assumption. Saying no starts to feel like a moral failure, not a financial decision. One documented pattern across multiple cases. Winners who made large gifts or loans to family members almost never recovered those funds. Not because the family was malicious, but because money given from abundance rarely comes with the same weight as money earned slowly. It gets spent differently, it disappears faster, and the relationship often doesn't survive the fallout anyway. So the winner loses the money and sometimes the relationship, both at once. Here's the part that most financial content skips over. The tax structure around lump sum lottery winnings is significantly more aggressive than most people expect. In the US, federal tax alone can take close to 37%. State taxes vary, but many add another 5 to 10% on top. So that $40 million headline number might actually land closer to 22 or 23 million after the government's cut, which is still a life-changing amount of money. But it's not 40 million, and a lot of financial decisions get made based on the 40 million figure, not the real number sitting in the account. That gap between perceived wealth and actual wealth runs through almost every case study in this category. The winner is operating on a mental number that no longer matches the bank statement. Annuity versus lump sum is a choice most winners face immediately, under significant emotional pressure, often without proper advice. The lump sum feels like freedom. The annuity feels like waiting. But the annuity quietly solves several of the problems that destroy lump sum winners: burn rate, lending pressure, lifestyle inflation. It forces a slower relationship with the money. Most people choose the lump sum anyway, and that choice isn't irrational on its face. But it removes the one structural guard that might have slowed everything down. There's a misconception worth addressing directly here. Most people assume lottery winners fail because they're financially irresponsible or uneducated. That assumption is mostly wrong. A significant portion of documented cases involve people who made recognizable, even admirable moves, helping their parents, paying off the family home, starting a small business, investing in real estate. These aren't reckless decisions. They're decisions made without the infrastructure to support them. No estate planning, no tax strategy, no liquidity management, no clear boundary between personal generosity and financial survival. The money wasn't wasted on absurdity. It was diluted across 100 reasonable-seeming choices that collectively added up to zero. That's a harder lesson than don't buy a yacht. Because don't buy a yacht is easy advice to follow. Don't slowly give away your financial foundation across 50 small decisions that each felt justified. That's a much harder line to hold. There's also something that happens cognitively when a person's identity shifts faster than their habits. One week you're managing a grocery budget. The next week, someone is calling you wealthy. The internal wiring doesn't update that fast. So spending patterns from the old life get applied to the scale of the new one. A person who used to spend freely on weekends now spends freely at a completely different price point. The behavior is identical. The consequences are not. This is why financial literacy alone doesn't fix the problem. You can understand compound interest perfectly and still hand $70,000 to a sibling because the family pressure in that room is louder than any spreadsheet. The practical reality is this: sudden wealth requires a different kind of financial structure, not just better intentions or more discipline. It requires a waiting period before major decisions. It requires separating accessible cash from long-term capital. It requires, at minimum, one fiduciary advisor, meaning someone legally required to act in your interest, not just someone who showed up at the right moment. And it requires a clear written policy on family and lending, decided before the requests start coming in, not in the middle of an emotional conversation. None of this is complicated in theory. All of it is genuinely hard under real pressure. The broader takeaway isn't really about lottery winners. Most people will never win a lottery, but most people will at some point receive money in a way that feels sudden: an inheritance, a severance, a bonus, a legal settlement, a property sale. The same pressure shows up at every scale. The question worth sitting with is simple. If a significant amount of money arrived in your account tomorrow, do you actually have a plan for it? Or would you just start making decisions?